in the Army, we will be the first 2 Jewish generals. I was so uneducated and so uninformed that I didn't know that to be an officer, you have to go to officer candidate school. And it sure didn't hurt to have a college degree. So off we go to the Army with my high school diploma that was, they shouldn't even have given it to me. I go to Korea, he went to Texas. He got out on a psychiatric discharge, and I stayed in Korea. And by the way, where I grew up, there was anti-Semitism. In my enclave, I see a gentleman nodding his head. I lived in a neighborhood, the guy who lived to my left was Genyu. The guy to my right was Stashu. And then we had Italians. But where I lived, I heard Dirty Jew, Kike, Sheeny, and Heeb more times than I could count. And I remember coming home from school, grammar school, and I'd say to my father, Dad, some guys want to beat me up to say I killed Jesus. I don't know who he is. How could I have killed him? And I said, what should I do? My father said, you know, when I left Poland, before Hitler got there, I thought, that's it. Wouldn't see it anymore. He said, but it's never going to end. He said, so I'll tell you what you're going to do. You can't run. That's a disgrace. You can't negotiate because they're animals. He said, so what you're going to have to do is learn how to fight. This Jew can fight. Now I'm in the California Boxing Hall of Fame. I know how to fight. So I learned how to fight, and we had a lot of fights in my neighborhood. So I get to Korea, and I'm 18 years old, and I'm in a truck, and the truck is driving me up the side of a mountain, and my outfit was by the DMZ. And the driver points to a Quonset hut, and he said, this is where you're going to live. So I got out, and I put the duffel bag over my shoulder, and I walked in, and it was a Sunday, no officers. And there were about 8 guys in the hut, and I saw one empty bunk, and I laid down, and I'm reading a magazine that I got in Tokyo at the PX. Within about 5 minutes, every civilized man's worst nightmare happened to this Jew. How many of you saw Deliverance? This guy was the star. I weighed 150 pounds. He weighed about 220 and about 6'2", and he was one mean animal. And he came over to my bunk, and he said, hey, you, are you from Chicago? And I'm a pretty fast thinker, and I'm thinking, now, how's this guy know I'm from Chicago? And it occurred to me that because headquarters was closed, the truck driver put my file down in the Quonset hut. I said, yes. He said, what do they do in Chicago besides get run over by trucks and get shot at? And now I know it's coming. And then he started shaking my bunk. I'm holding on for dear life. And he said, are you a Jew? I said, yep. And then he said, show me your tail. Well, when I got through with him, I'll bet he went back to Arkansas and told all his friends, don't mess with the Jews. And took good care of them. I came home from Korea. I was 20 years old. My father spoke broken English. He waited about a week. He took me in the bedroom. He closed the door. He spoke to me in Yiddish. Mein Sohn, was will der Ton mit dein Leben? I said, Dad, my son, what are you going to do with your life? I said, I want to do what you do. I want to be a house painter. He goes like this, nope, not my boy. He said, you're going to be a lawyer. I said, Dad, I said, I'll abide, but I can't be a lawyer. I got thrown out of high school, and I never read a book. He said, yeah, but you're smart. He said, you could be president. I said, no, Dad. I said, I want to do what you do. He said, okay, Boychik, you start tomorrow. He had me painting closets in the projects on the south side. And I came home on the 3rd day. I was covered with paint. I had more paint on my face than the closet. And I said, Dad, guess what? I'm going to be a lawyer. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So the problem was we had the Hobnishkin Geld. So now I got to figure out how am I going to do this because we have no money. And so I came up with a plan. And the plan was I'm going to do 2 things until I become a lawyer. I'm going to work and I'm going to study. When I get through working, I study. When I get through studying, I work. No TV, no parties. And then I said to my father, I said, Dad, you know what? I said, it's going to take me 8 years. It's going to take me 4 years to get my bachelor's degree. And then to go to law school at night, it's another 4 years. And my father was so smart. He said, you know what, Borchik? 8 years will come and 8 years will go. And some guys, they'll be kicking back and they'll be drinking and partying and they'll have nothing. But if you do what I tell you, you're going to walk into court and the judge is going to call you a counselor. I said, good enough for me. So I did it. I drove a taxi cab in Chicago and I went to Roosevelt University part-time and I had a second job of selling cash registers. It was schlecht, not easy. I eventually did it. I'm now living in Los Angeles. My folks moved and I went to Los Angeles. I'm in my senior year and I got my bachelor's degree at California State University, and then I became a high school teacher in Los Angeles. And then I started law school at night, and there were times when I thought I'll never make it. I was sleeping 3-4 hours a night, but I did it. I became a lawyer. By the way, before I left Chicago, I had a roommate who was a cab driver. We lived in an apartment on Kenmore off of Broadway. I lived like a rat, like a rat. The bed came out of the wall, cockroaches, no kitchen. We had a hot plate, you know. And there were times I wanted to give up, but I kept going and going and going. And finally I became a lawyer, and then I joined the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office, which was then and is now the greatest and largest criminal law firm in the world. I became the chief. This Jew who got thrown out of high school. I became the chief and I supervised 400 lawyers. And of course, my parents were quelling. And then I became an adjunct professor at UCLA. And then I was enshrined in the California Boxing Hall of Fame. I am the legal advisor for the California Boxers. I'm on the board of directors of the World Boxing Hall of Fame. I am the legal advisor for the California Professional Referees and Ringside Physicians. I have sparred with world champion boxers. I love boxing, and when I walk up to the boxing gym and as I climb the stairs, I'll hear world champions saying, if you're in a jam and you're heading for the can, who do you call? Gangrene. So that's the kind of stuff I write about in my book. The men that I grew up with, all the Jewish guys, they all wanted to be heavyweight champ. Everybody loved boxing, am I right? And when Joe Louis lost to Marciano, the Yids were crying like they did for Roosevelt. It was a very sad day. So I love boxing, and one day I was a single parent. I raised my son by myself. He's now a doctor. 6 months ago, he got his PhD degree. But one day, we got up early in the morning, we went to the gym, and my son said, Daddy, I want to learn how to box. And as it turned out, the manager of the gym was banging the heavy bag. For those of you who know about boxing, it takes a lot of skill to bang the heavy bag properly. So I knew he knew what he was doing. So I said, where can I take my son to learn how to box? I was a street fighter, but I didn't know the fine art of pugilism. And he said, you got lucky. He said, there's a Jewish man who lives 2 blocks, who has a gym 2 blocks away above a tattoo parlor, and he was a champion. And so after court that day, I picked my son up at the Jewish daycare, and we climbed the stairs, right out of Rocky. And the man's name was Frankie Goodman. I loved him. We bonded. We became very close. And he had been close friends with Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson. He managed and trained many world champions. And he taught my son how to box. And then I got hooked, and I started sparring with an FBI agent who was at my level. And eventually, my friend Frankie died. And after a while, I was looking for another gym. And I had a friend who was an actor. He knew I knew nothing about movies. I never had time for movies. And he said, Ken, I got a friend who's a movie star. He owns a boxing gym. And I told him about you, and he said I could bring you by.